So for the setup, all I changed was the steering pinion brake bias. I changed the steering pinion to 2.87. That's why I run it all ovals for the next gen. And I changed the front brake bias to 45.4, which is the lowest you can go without changing the MCs. So there really is no run up to this lap. The car, unfortunately, with the setup that IRC made, the car maxed out RPMs way before the start finish line. So there's really no benefit to like going high and trying to get a big run. So I just ran the bottom like I normally would in the last corner. There's no special run to the start finish line like there normally is. Like you can see, I'm way before the start finish line. I'm already maxing out. It sucks, but what you gonna do? So I'm looking at this light here, and just before that light, I'm on the brakes. Just before that light. Oh, to backtrack. The reason I was all the way over here and not by the wall is because that being right next to the wall will have a side draft will give a side draft to the car, and that'll slow the car down. So we're gonna move away from that wall. Now that we're entering the corner, we're gonna get closer to that wall. It really helps to be right up against the wall, like right up next to it. It really helps because this corner is so tight. So we're looking at this caution light. Just before it, I'm on the brakes. See if I slow mo that. Just before that, and when I'm on the brakes and turning in. On the brakes and turning in. I don't get on the brakes very hard, maybe 30, maybe 40%. And then now that I got on the brakes initially, I drop it down to around 20%. And I hold this, aiming for the bottom of the track. Now that I'm a little bit closer to the bottom, I get off the brake. I'm aiming towards this like strip here that's below the white paint, but not on the extended part of the track. Get off the brake, and as soon as I'm off the brake, I don't get right back on it, but I roll for a slight second, and then I get back on it. Right about when this thing starts, so this extended apron starts, I get on it. And I get on it full throttle. You can roll into it, but I found it to be faster to go full throttle. It might be, it will be a little bit more easy to roll on the throttle instead of just stabbing it. Using a lot of wheel to help the car turn. Now that we're down in the corner, we're actually going to use this extended apron. So by the light, we're aiming for that. We're aiming for the extended apron. Now we're actually going to use it. And you see when I get on throttle, the car still turns. The car's not pushing when I get on throttle. We can use this extended apron in this corner. Although in the other corners, it does get loose if you use it in the wrong spot. So I'll try to point that out when I get there. So you can use that apron. Now we're gonna try not to hit the wall and exit. That's pretty tricky. Try not to hit the wall, but you're trying to get the wheel straight. If you have the wheel like this on exit, you see I kind of turn the wheel back straight. If you saw the wheel like 90 degrees to the left, the car would not accelerate off the corner. You wouldn't hit the wall, but the car would not accelerate off the corner and lose so much time. You can use this little groove in the track here and line up with your pillar. This groove here and line up the pillar to kind of determine where you are towards the wall. See, I'm pretty close to it. I could be closer though. See, I kind of turn right just slightly to get closer. So now I'm a little bit closer. If I go back to far chase, not much closer, but a little bit closer. Now for this corner, it's really hard to like have a point of when to turn in and get on the brakes. So you're gonna have to get a really good feel for it. But you can kind of see when this comes into view. You're only gonna be able to see this replay. You're not actually gonna be able to see this when you're driving. This is kind of too hard to look for. But on replay, if you want to compare, you kind of see this inside curbing that's blue and white. Right when that really comes into view is when I turn in. And I drive into this corner pretty hard. It's a pretty long corner. Now that I'm in the corner and I'm down the track a little bit, then I get on the brakes. And this time I only go 20%. I don't go to the 40%. On the brakes for not too long. We're going slower because the straightaway between turn 1 and turn 2 is really short compared to the straightaway between 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. Those front stretch and back stretch straightaways are huge. So we use a lot less brake in turn 2. Aiming for this again. It is kind of hard to get there, but we're aiming there. You see on this lap, I don't even get below this white paints because it's so tight. It does kind of, so it, like I mentioned earlier with turn 1, it does kill my exit speed to have the car have this much wheel and the car on exit. So if you could try to get the wheel a little bit more straighter, I couldn't. I felt like I felt like I was gonna hit the wall. I did leave a good amount of space, but I sure felt like I was gonna hit it. You see, I was pick up the gas really early compared to turn 1. Right when like this thing comes into view is when I kind of pick it up and I go full throttle. Trying to keep it out of the wall, but trying to keep the wheel straight too. Now we're gonna move away from that wall. Remember the side draft that I talked about? The wall gives you side draft, so you want to get away from that. We're about a car length away, as you can see. Now that we're closer to turn 3, we're gonna go and move our car over close to the wall. You can again use this line as a reference to your pillar. The pillar is pretty close to the pillar is always a good reference that I like to use of where I am on the track. Now I'm looking at this different wall transition where it gets a safer barrier instead of the concrete wall. I turn in just before that happens. And when I turn in, I'm on the brakes. I'm on the brakes to like 20%. And I'm on the brakes very light. This corner is really quick. So like maybe like a 40%, then drop down to 20%, and then all is really quick motion. I pick up the gas a little bit sooner here. Again, aiming for this. You can use this, but sometimes the car does get really loose using it. So be careful when you use it. If you feel like the car is going to get loose and spin, then try to get off it. And if you're already on it and you feel like the car is going to get loose and spin, then lift off throttle. That will help the car regain stability. Again, bring it out to the wall as close as you can without hitting it. Again, this is a guide. You see I was a little bit far away from the wall when on exit, so I turned right, try to get closer. Right there. Now again, looking at this. I don't know what this thing is, but it sure stands out. So we're going to turn in just before that. Turn in pretty sharp. On throttle a lot longer, so we turned in, but we're still on throttle. On throttle here, even though we're turning in. And now that we kind of have this in our view, now we're going to get on the brakes. Very quick 20%. Stab the 20% and then you're back on throttle. This time you do not want to go full throttle. The car will get tight or it will get loose if you bring it too far on that extended apron on this very light gray. Kind of tan color. So I'm half throttle. Pick it up half and then roll full. And if the car does feel loose here, you can always lift. And the idea is you want to have the wheel straight, but you don't want to hit the wall. You're trying to have the wheel straight without hitting the wall. And again, you're going to get far away from that wall. And annoyingly enough, it does max out RPMs, which is ridiculous, but whatever. And that put me across the line at a 51.32. Now, don't take that 51.32 and say, if I do better than that, then I'm golden, because I can't promise you are. This is filmed way before A-Fix week, because I'm going on vacation. Woo! So A-Fix might have different temps, so don't take the lap time as sort of the challenge to beat, but use the guide as like a pointer of where you should brake, how the car feels, because the car is still going to feel the same, even though lap time won't be the same.